everyone's having a pleasant weekend. It is Sunday afternoon in late October, and we're in Virginia today. Just got done making a delivery at a place called Fort Pickett, which is just south and I guess southwest of Petersburg. And it's 72 degrees here. It was 78 earlier today. Beautiful weather. In late October in Michigan, which is where we were yesterday afternoon, it was in the 40s and cloudy, and it just had that Midwest gloominess that you get at the end of September, and it doesn't end until the end of May, so you get it for about 8 months out of the year, sometimes 9 months out of the year. But here in Virginia now, it's still beautiful, sunny, and 70s in late October. We'll take it. But we were at another place called, another military base called Camp Atterbury yesterday morning, making a delivery, similar size delivery, maybe half a dozen pallets or less. And it is supplies and equipment that they need for a mission that they're performing there, if that makes any sense. And we've just been doing a lot of driving during the last few days. In late September, we delivered 3 truckloads to Camp Atterbury. So that was 3 round trips from Michigan, maybe 50 pallets total of freight. Probably, I'm going to say about 30,000 pounds of freight. Yeah, each delivery was about 10,000 pounds. And we've been sending truckloads out on commercial freight, although that's getting more and more expensive these days. As of late October, the going rate is about $250 to $280 a mile for FTL, full truckload freight. If you can get it. And everything's delayed. And what else is crazy is that hotel rooms are hard to get. Everything is in a condition of scarcity right now. You can't get a hotel room not because everything's full, but because they can't find people to clean the rooms, so they got dirty rooms at the end of the day. It's unreal. Toilet paper is back on a limit at places like Costco. Paper towels being rationed. Everything's being rationed again. It's crazy. It's absolutely unreal. But the purpose of the video is to talk about the subject of the day, which is the price of gas, which just seems to keep going up by the day almost. We did a lot of driving last year, and in fall of 2020, last time we did a round trip out to the West Coast with our big trailer. We've driven out there with our smaller truck, the F-150, and driven a small trailer all over California and Nevada, places like that. But the last time we took our big trailer with a diesel truck was fall of 2020, and diesel fuel was like $1.50 when we were passing through Texas, Oklahoma. And even as late as November, December, it was like $1.99. Even in Michigan, all over the Midwest, it was $1.99. And now, just 10 months later, it is about double that. Yesterday morning and afternoon, in places like Indiana, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, it was anywhere between let's say $3.60 and $4 and change, like $4.09 we saw. And so we're back to paying $100+ to top off our diesel tank, which is ridiculous. It's and when we're driving, we're pulling a heavy load, we're topping off every probably 2-3 hours. So you're paying average, call it $25 to $30 an hour for fuel, which again is unreal. But a lot of people are looking at that and they're saying, okay, the price of fuel keeps going up. Maybe I am driving my truck for a living because I'm like one of those hotshot truckers and I pull a flatbed with shipping containers or or whatever people want to load onto it. Or you live in your RV and you're driving year round. Maybe you're driving a lot less than you were before. But again, for people who put a lot of miles on their diesel truck, you can't change the fact that you've got a very big vehicle that has very bad aerodynamics. And if you're lucky, your trailer is somewhat streamlined. Our 48-foot trailer, it's got a tapered nose. It's actually relatively aerodynamic. We actually get almost as good mileage with our 48-foot trailer as we do with a much smaller travel trailer that we pull a lot. For instance, today. But even so, you can't change the basic laws of physics. You're driving a big vehicle that's very heavy, that has extremely bad aerodynamics. And so you're not going to be getting great mileage no matter what you do. However, you can do a few things to improve it. But people might be thinking, given the price of gas keeps going up, or diesel fuel, should I just go ahead and delete my diesel to maybe improve the MPGs a little bit? And the recommendation from here is absolutely not. And there's 3 reasons why. The first reason, to be perfectly honest, is that deleting your diesel doesn't actually save you a ton of mileage. At least if it's a Duramax. And specifically when we talk about deleting to save fuel, a lot of people think that DPF, the diesel particulate filter, which started to be installed on trucks at the halfway point in 2007. So the 2007.5 model year. And people say, oh my God, the DPF, it's terrible. It's clogged up my exhaust. It's killing my MPGs, killing my power. It's choking my engine. And I'm here to tell you that's just not the case, generally speaking. If you have a relatively modern diesel, ours is a 2011. It was the first year they made the LML, which was GM's second generation Duramax that had a DPF on it. The first one being the LMM that they introduced at the halfway point in the 2007 model year. Yeah, there may have been some problems early on with the LMM and DPFs. A lot of people said that Cummins had a lot of trouble with the DPF when they first rolled it out in the 6.7 starting in 2007. But ours is a second generation fully emissions compliant Duramax. And it doesn't just have the DPF, it also has the SCR system, otherwise known as the DEF system, which they introduced in 2011. And that doesn't have quite the impact on gas mileage because it's not exactly causing any restriction to your exhaust flow. But again, what people think is that the DPF is killing their mileage. And it just isn't. We have found, again, pulling a 48-foot fully enclosed trailer, it's about the size of an 18-wheeler trailer, to be honest. It has 40 feet of load floor. So if you think about a 40-foot semi-trailer, we've got about the same floor space as one of those. Actually, exactly the same floor space as one of those. And so we can fit 20 standard-sized pallets in that trailer. It's a big, big, heavy trailer. But we have gotten about the same mileage on the highway pulling that trailer with our Duramax that is fully EPA compliant, as we did with our 2003 Cummins with the 5.9, which did not have the DPF, didn't have the SCR or the DEF system, didn't even have EGR. And with that Cummins pulling the 48-foot trailer, we were getting about 11, 12 miles to the gallon on the highway, going between 60 and 70 miles an hour, call it 65. And with our 2011 Duramax LML, pulling our 48-foot trailer on the highway between 60 and 70 miles an hour, guess what our MPGs were? Consistently between 10 and 12 miles to the gallon. So there just isn't the impact that you think there is. And you could call that unscientific testing. Sure, fine. Well, don't take it from us. If you watch any of the Gale Banks videos, he will tell you he has dyno tested Duramaxes with and without the DPF. And he'll tell you it makes in the low single digits of a difference in terms of power and mileage. And we'll caveat by saying that if you've got a truck with a DPF, you need to be running on the highway a lot. And you need to be getting it up to operating temperature. You need to be putting hot exhaust through that exhaust system, because in order for the DEF system to work, the SCR system, it has a catalyst, and it requires hot exhaust in order for the DPF to function properly, or specifically the DOC, the diesel oxidation catalyst, which is what you use to do a regen and clean out the DPF. You have to have hot exhaust going through it. In order to regen the DPF, meaning to clean the soot out of the soot filter, you have to have an EGT of about 585 to 600 degrees to light off that diesel oxidation catalyst, which is similar to a gasoline engine's catalytic converter. And then put 1100 degrees into your DPF to literally burn off that soot and eliminate the restriction, or reduce it down to an acceptable level. But if you're just driving around town and idling the engine a lot and going under very light load, and never really getting it up to operating temperature, and never putting, again, heavy loads through it and getting that exhaust nice and hot, the after treatment systems aren't going to work that efficiently. And oh, by the way, you're going to be producing a lot more soot and putting it into that soot filter, and then it will have a substantial impact on your MPGs. So, note to self: a modern diesel powered truck needs to be running on the highway a lot, or just under heavy load. It cannot be used, to idle around town and cruise the strip and sit around and look pretty. It's got to be putting those highway miles on it, and got to be under load. And if you do that, your DPF will stay clean. So since the last time we regened, which was about a month ago, it was around the 29th of September, give or take, that was the last time we know of that this truck did a regen. And since that time, we've done 3 round trips from Southeast Michigan to the Indianapolis area, which is about 600-mile round trips. So 3 of those, call it 1,800 miles. We've also driven it from Southeast Michigan to the DC area, which is another 500 miles. And just today, we drove it about another 150, almost 200 miles down to Fort Pickett. So we're talking 3,000 plus miles that we've run since the end of September, and have not done a single regen. And that's because the DPF stays clean, and it's just able to burn the soot off naturally, because hot exhaust is constantly going through it, or not accumulate soot in the first place. And as a result, the engine is running very efficiently. And so that's the first reason you should not delete your truck. The second reason is, if you ever plan to turn it into the dealer, and trade it in, I should say, and get a new one, dealers will not take deleted trucks. They don't want to get anywhere near them. And so you're going to have to sell it to a private party who may or may not have any interest in dealing with a deleted truck either. Because if you delete it, who knows what else you've done to it. And, it's basically damaged goods at that point. You may or may not care about that. The third reason is that if you get stopped by the DOT and they run an inspection, they will figure it out. Chances are. Because they're looking for it. And then you'll deal with your EPA fines that are in the thousands of dollars. And do you really want to have to deal with that for what is, in all likelihood, a very, very minor improvement in your miles to the gallon? To us, it's not worth it. So for all those reasons, we just don't recommend deleting your truck. You know, people say, "Oh, screw the EPA. I'm just going to take my chances," or "I'd like to roll coal," and you know, the hell with them. And that's great, but there's only you know, life is short, and there's only so many times and places when you want to, you know, fight to the death for your freedom, and going toe to toe with the EPA over your truck's exhaust system. It just seems like, you know, you got to pick your battles. And life is hard enough as it is. So, if you're not going to delete your truck, what can you do to save fuel? Well, you're not going to want to hear it. But the number one thing that has an impact on your fuel consumption is your speed. By far the number one thing. And our observation in this truck is that if you're going about 65 with a trailer on the highway, you're going to get about 13 miles to the gallon. Maybe 14, depending. If you're going 70, you're going to get about 12 miles to the gallon. And if you're going 75, you're going to get about 10 or 11 miles to the gallon. And that's about what we've observed mostly on flat ground, but also to some extent going through the mountains. You know, you lose a lot going uphill, and then you gain it back going downhill, as long as you don't have to ride the brakes for any reason. But that's about where it's at. Again, about 13 when you're going 65. And I should say with this small trailer, not with the big one. The big one you lose, it's totally different. But with a travel trailer, it gets about 13 mpgs at 65 miles an hour. Maybe 12 at 70, maybe 11 at 75. With the 48 foot, yeah, we're talking about 11 miles to the gallon at speeds of anywhere between 60 and 70. But the faster you go, your MPGs drop off dramatically. So you have to ask yourself, what's more important, your time or your money? Is it really worth getting substantially worse fuel economy just to arrive a little bit quicker where you're going and to start to jeopardize your safety? We would never drive 75 with our 48-foot trailer. Just wouldn't do it, especially loaded, as we typically do, up to a total of 26,000 pounds. Absolutely not. There is no time savings that's worth it. But you notice anytime we get off the throttle and get on the brake, this thing immediately downshifts, and that exhaust brake kicks in very aggressively. And so a lot of times we don't even have to get on the brakes, because as soon as we lift the throttle, that is the signal to the truck to get on that exhaust brake. And it does a fantastic job of slowing this truck down, even going down very, very steep hills. If you're off the throttle, the truck is decelerating. It is never in a condition where it's just starting to take off on you and you got that feeling of a runaway truck. It's so well controlled that, having owned one now, again, a truck with an exhaust brake, we would never buy a diesel pickup without an exhaust brake. I mean, the difference is absolutely dramatic. because we've taken our 2003 Cummins, our 5.9, through the mountains, through the Rockies actually. We did it once with an 8,000-pound travel trailer, 16 foot, and then we did it once with our 48-foot trailer. Not loaded up to the full 26,000, but loaded up to probably at least 18,000. And the Cummins, it's a standard output 5.9. It was really not that happy going up the mountains, and it was a white knuckle ride coming down the mountains because the truck was not capable of decelerating using engine braking. And so we were on the friction brakes the entire time. And you could just smell them cooking. And lucky for us, we weren't driving it in any substantial amount of rain. But going down a rain-slicked highway on a steep downhill slope on the Rocky Mountains is not our idea of a good time. In a truck that doesn't have an exhaust brake. Absolutely not. So again, it's frustrating because again, you have to use your truck if you drive it for a living, or if you're RVing or whatever else you're doing, and you can't, generally speaking, control the price of gas, price of fuel. And deleting your truck is just not going to do what you think it's going to do for you. Specifically, deleting the DPF. The one thing you can do, as we stated, is just keep your speed down, and that has the absolute greatest impact on your fuel economy. I'd also say you can be strategic about where you top off. For the most part, we haven't seen too much of a difference between the retail price of fuel at truck stops versus corner stores. Obviously, if you have a fuel card and you're getting discounts, that helps. But the one thing we did see that was dramatic was there was a Costco in Indianapolis yesterday where we topped off, and the price of diesel there was $3.11, and everywhere else around it, it was $3.60, $3.80, $4, $4.09. Everywhere else, all the way from Virginia through Maryland, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Indiana. The one place we've seen it below about $3.60, $3.50 was at Costco, and it was $3.11. So that's the one piece of advice we can give you. Look out for Costco diesel, which is not at every Costco. In fact, it's not even at the majority. It's in a very small minority of Costco's carry diesel. But if you can find it, you can save potentially 20 or 30%. At least as of today, October 24th, 2021. But it's just an ugly situation we're in right now. Everything is in a state of shortage, from toilet paper to, we saw a vending machine at a rest stop on the interstate on I-95, just north of Richmond today. And the vending machine was out. You couldn't even get a Snicker bar or a Twix bar or whatever. We'd never seen it like that. Even during the pandemic, there are more shortages now than there were, spring, summer of 2020. It's just kind of unreal. Hell of a situation. But either way, I hope you all are having a pleasant weekend. We are really enjoying this beautiful weather and beautiful scenery in northern and central Virginia, and not quite looking forward to heading back to the Midwest, where it's got that winter gloom in full effect. But either way, again, I hope you all are having a great weekend, and we will talk to you later.